WION Wings.
Indian Air Force has got its first woman fighter pilot. Flying officer Avni Chaturvedi undertook a solo flight in a MiG-21 aircraft. The 24-year-old made an entire nation proud by shattering this glass ceiling. Take a look at her incredible feat as well as a wrap of happenings from around the world of aviation.
Flying officer Avni Chaturvedi has become the first Indian woman to fly a fighter aircraft solo. Scripting history, she flew her first solo sortie in a supersonic MiG-21 Bison fighter jet. She took off from the Jamnagar Air Base in Gujarat on 19 February and successfully completed her mission. The sortie lasted about 30 minutes. A solo sortie in a fighter is the first step to becoming a fully operational fighter pilot. Chaturvedi was commissioned as a flying officer in July 2016, less than a year after the government decided to open the fighter stream for women. US Navy aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson left the port of Manila on 20th February after completing a 4-day visit to the Philippines. More than 5,500 sailors from USS Carl Vinson and guided missile destroyer USS Michael Murphy visited local attractions and participated in community service projects. The strike group is operating in the Indo-Pacific region to work with partners and allies, promote freedom of the seas, and enhance regional security. Local and foreign journalists were given tours inside the 1,100 feet long warship, which carries around 90 jet fighters and other reconnaissance aircraft and at least 5,500 crew members. The visit came days after a report revealed that Chinese structures such as hangars, satellites and docks are nearing completion in the disputed South China Sea. Passengers aboard a United Airlines flight 1175 from San Francisco to Honolulu had a harrowing trip over the Pacific Ocean. The casing around one of the engines ripped apart. The Boeing 777 craft continued for 45 minutes before making an emergency landing. The plane was carrying more than 370 people on board. Pilots declared an emergency due to a vibration in the right engine and immediately warned the Honolulu International Airport's ground crew. They managed to land the craft without any mishappenings. Passengers burst into applause at the successful landing. The airline is cooperating with the US National Transportation Safety Board and Federal Aviation Administration to investigate the incident. 13 people were killed in southern Mexico when a minister's helicopter crash-landed on its way to the epicenter of a powerful earthquake that rattled the region. The 7.2 magnitude quake caused only material damage when it struck, but it triggered a tragic turn of events with this crash. The UH-60 Black Hawk military helicopter landed on its side, crushing a van in the southwestern town of Pinotepa de Don Luis. The chopper was carrying Interior Minister Alfonso Navarrete and Oaxaca State Governor Alejandro Murat, who were unharmed. The earthquake came less than 6 months after 2 quakes that killed hundreds of people in the country. Mexico's location makes the country prone to strong earthquakes because it is in a subduction zone, or a zone where one slab of the crust is slowly sliding under another.
A French man is attempting to cross Nice-Corsica crossing on a pedal-powered airship. A plane landed in a garden, and I got a chance to meet Uber's global CEO on his first India visit and quiz him on Uber's quest for flying taxis. All this and much more in our segment News Deck.
French balloonist Stéphane Rousseau tested his pedal-powered airship ahead of an attempt at crossing the Mediterranean Sea. Rousseau plans to use this balloon to travel from Nice to Calvi in northern Corsica later this year. Rousseau has been working on this project around the clock, battling many hardships. He is perhaps the only person to pilot such a flying machine. The airship looks like a small zeppelin and is powered with a bicycle-like structure, 2 propellers and a 20-meter-long helium-filled balloon.
Alors la difficulté, c'est que c'est une machine qui est extrêmement sensible aux conditions météo, puisqu'il nous faut des vents inférieurs à 5 km/h pour pouvoir voler. Donc 5 km/h de vent, c'est pas grand chose, c'est-à-dire que la mer doit être totalement plate, pas la moindre risée sur l'eau. Et il se trouve qu'ici dans notre région, c'est relativement difficile à trouver.
Flying this machine requires a thorough understanding of its sensitive aerodynamics. The slightest change in wind or temperature could end up being catastrophic for the pilot, as it would destabilize the whole structure. In September 2008, Rousseau tried to cross the English Channel but only managed to travel 35 kilometers after 8 hours of pedaling.
Moi, je me suis quand même fait plaisir. Non, il me manque un petit bout de plaisir. J'aurais voulu monter un peu à 20 mètres de haut, faire une petite évolution. Mais avec le stress de départ, je me sentais moins bien. Après, je préférais assurer la sécurité.
10 years on, Rousseau is set to embark on a new journey, though success may depend more on Mother Nature than his own determination.
A small plane was forced to make an emergency landing in the Melipilla province of central Chile's Santiago metropolitan region. A mechanical malfunction forced the pilot to land the Cessna 172 plane in the garden of house next to a swimming pool. The craft bounced off a tree and jumped over the pool before coming to a halt. However, no one on board was injured. House caretaker Eliodoro Jara witnessed the event and saw both the pilot and passenger on board run away from the aircraft after it came crashing down. The plane was being piloted by a 23-year-old with a commercial plane license.
Vi cuando iban caminando hacia allá ellos, iban corriendo, saliendo hacia allá. Yo no sé si iban asustados, no tengo idea, pero sí fue grande el susto que pasaron. Aquí andamos con la serie.
British Prime Minister Theresa May visited aircraft manufacturer Bombardier's factory in Belfast, Northern Ireland last week. The tour happened ahead of a meeting with political leaders of the region. Canadian-owned Bombardier's bitter trade dispute with Boeing had threatened jobs at the Belfast plant after the United States trade authorities sided with the US company and proposed a 292% tariff on the import of its rivals' planes into the country. 1,000 of the 4,000-strong workforce at the Belfast factory work on the C-Series production line. Much to their relief, the decision was overturned by the US International Trade Commission in Washington, D.C. The ITC ruled that Boeing did not suffer injury from an order of C-Series jets placed by Atlanta-based Delta Airlines.
Ride-hailing firm Uber is now looking at a flying future. Uber has struck a deal with NASA to develop software for managing flying taxi routes in the air along the lines of ride-hailing services it has pioneered on the ground. The ride-hailing firm would begin testing 4-passenger, 322 km/h flying taxi services across Los Angeles in 2020, its second test market after Dallas-Fort Worth. All a passenger has to do is to book the flight through Uber app, and then it ascends to a skyport on the roof of a nearby building. These will be Uber's on-demand urban taxis, which customers could order via smartphone in ways that parallel the ground-based taxi alternatives. WION Wings caught up with Uber CEO Dara Khosrow Shahi to find out more about this ambitious plan.
We're now in a position for manufacturers to build vehicles that have multiple rotors that create a safe environment for vertical takeoff. And because you've got multiple rotors, the noise pollution for these vehicles is much lower than the noise pollution that you see for helicopters. We think it'll take 5 years or so for these vehicles to be available on a pilot basis. They'll be safe, they'll be more quiet. We're talking to manufacturers right now, and we're talking to cities about how you have to build this technology to be safe, what kind of air routes can you create from city centers to airports, etc. And this is active dialogue that we're having right now, and ultimately it's very much in the interest of a number of cities to solve congestion problems, to create other high-speed corridors for travel within their cities, and ultimately to help pollution as well. So we're pretty excited about it.
Time to say goodbye, but as usual, we won't say over and out without a special story. This one is from the archives. Take a look at one of the largest displays of World War II planes to ever fly over Washington, D.C. Take care and fly safe.
8th of May 2015 marked the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. It was on this day in 1945 that the Allied forces formally accepted Germany's unconditional surrender. The event was called Arsenal of Democracy World War II Victory Capitol Flyover. The flypast celebrated America's role in winning air superiority over the Axis powers. It featured rare aircraft in a series of formations commemorating battles during the war. B-25 bombers were among the dozens of vintage planes that appeared above the Washington Monument and flew down the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Flying fighters and bombers just 1,000 feet off the ground in the highly secure airspace above the White House is typically prohibited since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Jerry Yellen flew the final mission of World War II over Japan. The last time he'd flown in a fighter plane was in 1946, until he got another chance during preparations for the flyover. Understandably, the veterans were really emotional seeing the craft in action again.
I sort of didn't have a memory of the G's that you pull when you do maneuvers, and it was kind of exciting. I just thank all of these guys who fly these World War II airplanes for keeping our memory alive.
It hit me so bad that tears came to my eyes. I'm looking at these planes which I saw flying above us during the war, and the one that interested me a lot was the P-38. That was the first plane that I saw shot down in France. The two fuselages just came off and the thing hit the ground.
Every year the number of World War II veterans wane in number. These vintage planes go a long way in keeping their memory alive.